up, YouTube? Welcome to another episode here at the Game Nights. You have Titan here, and I'm coming at you guys with my first list video of the channel. I hope that you guys are excited for this one because I've been wanting to do a list video for a while now, guys. I was kind of hoping to do like maybe a ban list prediction video, but then that kind of never happened because the ban list just randomly dropped out of nowhere. So I was like, oh man, I can't do my prediction video anymore. So I'm coming at you guys with my top 15 side deck choices of the 2020 format. We are in the final month of the year, so I figured why not just wrap it all up, pick, the best 15 side deck cards we've seen throughout the year and put them in a list. I'll talk about it briefly. So before I get into it, make sure that you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Make sure that you guys check us out on Facebook and definitely keep notified by smashing that notification bell. You can do whatever you want to this little bell. You can go ahead and chuck it. You can go ahead and do whatever the hell you want to. You can uppercut it. You can go ahead and just explode it. Whatever the heck you guys want to do, just do it because you want to be notified for Game Nights content. But yeah, guys, without further ado, let's get right on into the video. I'm going to start us off strong, and that is going to be with our 15 slot kaijus. And the kaiju that I'm mostly going to be talking about is, of course, Gameciel, because Gameciel is the lowest attack stat kaiju, so it is the easiest to beat over after you go ahead and tribute something off of the field. Probably the situation where Gameciel is going to be your best friend is going to be in any matchup with a deck that plays Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. That card is extremely difficult to deal with. There's almost no ways to deal with it because it cannot be destroyed by card effects or targeted, and a lot of things in today's meta target, so just being able to use the Gameciel to just tribute over that Dragoon, or realistically anything that puts up like any sort of negates like Savage or Apollosa, Gameciel is going to be a fantastic option. So that's why it deserves to be on the number 15 slot. 14 is going to be the back row hate. I'm going to give it to Cyclone and to Twin Twisters. So these are going to be the two best back row hate that we generally kind of see inside decks. I'm going to give the slight edge to Cyclone here because Cyclone banishes the card versus just regularly destroying it like Twin Twisters does. There are decks like Eldritch that are using their traps, to be banished and then gain more advantage that way. And just be able to banish them right off the hop with, so that they can't do that. Same with PK, banishing their Fog Blade to generate more advantage. Just don't allow them to do that, so you just play the Cyclone, banish it in the first place. Twin Twister's still really good, just being able to remove 2 cards instead of 1. So that's why I just kind of grouped it together because they're both equally really good at just removing the back row. Then, for my number 13 slot, I'm going to talk about Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. So Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit's been kind of in and out of the format, just kind of depending on what the format is, but it is still a fantastic side deck option, especially if you're looking for more of a budget option or just you don't want to play Gamma. I find that Ogre's just like a really good replacement option for that. Ogre just being able to remove the card from the field, removing monster effects that activate, or removing the continuous spells or field spells, because we have had some problematic field spells. I'm looking at you, Lost World. So yeah, just using the Ghost Ogre to remove those has been extremely useful. It's still just like one of the best side deck hand traps in today's metagame, and that's why it deserves to be in the top 15. Not in the top 10, wasn't quite that impactful. I find that there were more that were just like more impactful than Ghost Ogre, but definitely deserves to be on the list for sure. Then at number 12, I have Lightning Storm. So Lightning Storm, guys, is an insane card too. We haven't seen as much play of Lightning Storm. That's why it's a little bit lower on the list, because we've gotten Harpy's Feather Duster back off of the ban list. So we haven't had so much the need to play the Lightning Storm. However, the Lightning Storm is still a versatile card, just being able to remove monsters. Removing monsters as long as they're in attack position, and then of course the back row as well. So it is more versatile than just a regular back row hate card. However, we are seeing a lot of players just kind of play around the Lightning Storm by placing all of their boss monsters, especially the ones with all the negates, in defense, literally just to play around Lightning Storm. So, I mean, because people are doing that just to play around, I think that alone, makes it so that this card deserves a spot on this list, but just doesn't crack the top 10 because we have seen some decline in play of the Storm since we've gotten Harpy's Feather Duster back. Then, For number 11, I have Dino Wrestler Pankratops in this slot. So Pankratops, guys, is still insane. It was a menace when it was running around at 3. It is still a menace now, even at 1. Just being able to, whenever the hell it wants, just, being able to special if your opponent has more monsters, and then whenever the hell it wants, tribute, get rid of something on the field, target something and destroy it. Still one of the best, ways of removing, resources off the field. So just being able to do that is still really, really good on top of a 2600 body. Yeah, it's pretty good. So that's why it definitely deserves a spot on this list, even though it is limited. Then at number 10, I have Artifact Lancia in this slot. So this card is a great counter to any of the major meta decks right now, especially with like Eldritch banishing their traps, Invoked banishing the Alistair and the Secure Gardna to be able to recycle the Alistair and then the Invocation. Anything like that, or even like I said, PK all banishing their stuff to generate advantage throughout their combo. Lancia is going to be a fantastic card to go up against those decks. It just stops that completely. Because those decks are so relevant right now, that's why Lancia deserves to be in the top 10. Then for my number 9 spot, I have 2 cards again, just kind of grouping them together. The first one obviously being a little bit more impactful and just more powerful card than the second one. I'm going to talk about Forbidden Droplet and Forbidden Chalice. So they essentially both do the same thing, just negating cards that are on the field. That's why I have grouped them together. But like I said, of course, the Droplet is going to be the more impactful card because Droplet can also have the attack, and also it is a non-respondable card depending on the cards that you sent to the graveyard to resolve its effect. So just being able to just flat out just say, hey, you can't do this, like your effects are negated, half the attack. Just a really, really good card. If you're not main decking it 110,000%, I would be side decking this card. Really, really great card to deal with any sort of combo strategy for sure. That and Dark Ruler, I would say, are probably the 2 best cards to deal with like combo strategies going second. And that's why I have it on the list. I would have it higher up on the list, but Droplet is a costly card because you have to send things from your hand and field to resolve it. So that's why I have it a little bit lower. And like I said, Chalice is just, it's more free, still negates something on the field, and that's why I just have them together. So then for my number 8 slot, I have Solemn Judgment. So Solemn Judgment is a fantastic card for any deck that's more of like a slower grind out deck. Like an Eldritch, great card in Eldritch. Just being able to side deck, maybe going first in a game 2, side decking all those 3 judgments, making sure that whatever board you set up on your opponent just doesn't, get, decimated. So the Judgment is still really good for stopping any summon that you don't want, and of course, any blowout card that your opponent tries to place on you, like a Storm, like a Feather Duster, or heck, even like a Nibiru possibly. Nope, just flip over the Judgment and just say no to all that stuff. So Judgment, I think, is actually slept on as a side deck card. I think more side decks should play it just based on the fact that you can easily just side it in, going first in a game 2 if you just happen to lose that die roll, just to ensure that you are going to win that game 2. For my number 7 slot, I have a Triple Tactics Talent in this slot. Guys, this card, honestly, when I saw this card, I thought it was an absolute joke. I had one of those moments like where you see in Big Mouth where their heads explode. It looks like an apple core or like a match or something that just like exploded, something like that. It's just insane that 3 of the best effects that we have ever seen in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh being put into one card was just insane. And I swear when I first saw it, it was a quick play. Obviously it was, obviously found out that it was not a quick play, but I swear that when I first saw the reveal of it, that it was supposed to be a quick play. But anyways, just being able to have a Pot of Greed, a Change of Heart, and a Forceful Sentry all into one card, and to only have its activation requirements be that your opponent activates a monster effect during your turn, that's super easy because we all know that your opponent is going to interact with you in some form or fashion, whether it be a hand trap of their own, whether it be like, a Dragoon, like the Savage, Apollosa, anything like that. They're going to activate those kinds of effects, and it's always going to keep Triple Tactics Talent live. So I would 100%, again, if you're not main decking this card, I would 1000% be side decking this card. For my number 6 slot, I have Ghost Bell, DD Crow, and Skullmeister. So I kind of grouped all these cards together just because they all relatively do the same thing. they all just kind of stop graveyard shenanigans, and graveyard shenanigans are of course the major hit in today's metagame. So just being able to stop all that is really, really good. I'm actually surprised that we're not seeing more play of these cards, just considering how good the graveyard decks are, especially Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell being, you know, very, very versatile, like Ash, just having the 3 different, you know, situations where, you know, Ghost Bell can activate. That's why, like, I'm so surprised that more people aren't playing Bell, and I could see it come up in play depending on how good these decks become and actually how long these decks stick around for, because we have no idea how long Eldritch is going to be around for. They might decimate the deck out on the next ban list, they might not, who knows. Konami does some pretty crazy shenanigans on their ban list. I'm looking at you, Miscellaneousaurus. I'm looking at you, Magical Meltdown or Alistair. I'm looking at you, Calamities. Like, there's just, yeah, I'm not gonna get into that into that can of worms. There was definitely a bunch of stuff that should have happened but didn't. But anyways, these cards are definitely what you want to be playing in any graveyard matchup. For my number 5 slot, I have said this many times in a lot of my deck profile videos, I think that this is one of the best hand traps in the game outside of Imperm. I have it a little bit lower just because it does have a brick in its package, and that is going to be Psyframe Gear Gamma. So Psyframe Gear Gamma, just easily being one of the most impactful hand traps in today's metagame, just being able to stop a monster effect, and not only that, but destroy the card as well, removing the resource from the field. Like I've said a million times in all my videos, it's so impactful and it's so good. Makes your opponent play from behind, all that good stuff. You definitely want to be either main decking or side decking Psyframe Gear Gamma. Just literally what it does. Like I said, it is a little bit lower than, spoiler alert, Imperm on this list, just because it does have that 4th card that you need to play that is unfortunately kind of a massive brick. For my number 4 slot, I have Dark Ruler No More in this slot. So Dark Ruler No More was a very, very, like, impactful card when it first came out, and is still very impactful now. We were in more of like a break my board meta back then in 2019 with Dragon Link running around, and just a lot of decks that just want to make all these like crazy boards that have all these negates. Dark Ruler was literally your best friend. You needed that card absolutely at 3. Now, I don't think you need it absolutely at 3. You definitely should side deck them, or should try to side deck them, because there are still some really good combo decks. VW still putting up, you know, their Calamities. You also have your, you know, PK still putting up all of their negates. They are able to make Dragoon, and they're able to make Dark Requiem, you know, with all their negates and destructions. Like, you still need Dark Ruler, absolutely. So I would side deck Dark Ruler at some capacity for sure. It's still that impactful, and it's definitely deserves to be in the top 5. For my number 3 slot, I have Infinite Impermanence in this slot. So this one's a bit of a weird one. I still think it's relevant because we are seeing some people side deck maybe some copies of Imperm, or at least one copy. I know myself, I've been taking Imperm out of the main deck like at max capacity. I've usually always said no matter what, you're going to, you know, have to main deck Imperm at 3. Now I don't think as much, because now you're not really having to interact with so many crazy things that's just going to put up a bunch of negates, you know, allow your opponent to just grocery shop the entire turn. You're not going to have to deal with that as much. So I think that having a lower ratio of Imperm in the main is more acceptable. And now you're seeing, like, say maybe the 3rd one sided. So you're still going to see Imperm at some capacity in the side deck. That's why I have it this high up on the list. And it's still one of the best things to have in the side deck, just like a hand trap, you know, negate an effect. Same with Effect Veiler. You can group Effect Veiler in here if you want. And same with Moonlit Chill. It's just kind of a worse, you know, Imperm, worse Effect Veiler. So I do have it in the top 3. The next card that I think is super duper impactful, and again, kind of very similar to Imperm, my number 2 spot, and that is Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. So same idea with Imperm. You are seeing just like lower rows of Ash, I think, in the main deck, and you're having like the 3rd one sided. I obviously, there's still lots of decks that are still playing all 3 in the main, but I know myself, people just around the players that I'm playing, they're starting to main deck maybe 2 and then side the 3rd, just so that they can play more interruptions. Maybe they can like Nibiru's, or they can just fit in more pieces that actually allow them to play their strategy. So that's why I think, you know, that's why I put it on this spot on the list, because it's still like the most impactful hand trap. It's still so versatile, you know, just what it stops, and just the fact that you will see it at some capacity capacity, whether it be at like the full 3 or maybe just like one, like that third copy, you're going to see Ash Blossom in the side deck. So that's why it definitely deserves to be in the top 2. Before I go into my number 1 spot, I just want to mention a couple of honorable mentions. These cards were really hard to leave off the list, guys, like really hard. I really wanted to put them on, but all of the ones that I've already talked about have been, you know, I would say better than the ones that are on the honorable mentions. Some just, you know, fell completely out of relevancy just based on the ban list, whatnot. So the first one I want to talk about is Torrential Tribute. This one's the most recent one. Torrential Tribute just being an excellent, just remove a complete board wipe of their monsters just as soon as something is summoned. This is more of a recent thing, so especially like the trap decks like Eldritch have been able to abuse Torrential just because of what it does. So that's why I put it on the honorable mentions. Next, Red Reboot, another fantastic trap card that deals with trap cards. Especially, again, just Eldritch, just being able to, from your hand, you know, counter trap, just play it, stop any trap that's being activated. Now they can't play any traps for the rest of the turn. That's very detrimental to any deck that wants to play all the traps, obviously mainly Eldritch. Evenly Matched is another one. Evenly Matched kind of fell out of favor a little bit, I've found, especially now that we're not in like a break my board meta, and now we're more of like into more of like a control meta. You're not really seeing as much impact from the Evenly Matched, so people have decided not to play those as much. So that's why it found its way onto the honorable mentions and didn't find its way onto the top 15, because it was hard. I really wanted to. I would say it's probably like maybe spot like 17 or so, just based on like, you know, it falling out of favor. Token Collector, another card that fell out of favor, of course, because Link Cross got banned. So when tokens were like, you know, the bee's knees, everybody was doing all this token shenanigans. Well, they just played Token Collector to just get rid of all of that. So that's why he is on the honorable mentions. Another card I want to talk about is No Material. No Material, another fantastic hand trap. Just being able to, you know, stop your opponent from having, you know, a material. Just go into like an XYZ or into a Synchro or into a Link. You know, super good. Unfortunately, just its activation requirement to have no cards on the field was a little bit stiff for me. So that's why I have it on the honorable mentions. Another card that I want to talk about is Alpha, the Master of Beasts. Alpha just being more of a, like, it's a newer card, so that's why I put it on the honorable mentions, because it's so new. We haven't seen it as much in a lot of side decks yet, but I do have a feeling we will see a rise in play of Alpha here in the future. The last honorable mention that I want to talk about that was really hard to leave off the list was Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird, just, I feel like people favor Ash Blossom over the Droll and Lockbird, just because Ash is a little bit more versatile. The Droll and Lock can be a complete blowout card just depending on the matchup, but I just found that Ash is still the more favorable option, so that's why I put Droll and Lock into the honorable mentions as well. But definitely, depending on the meta, I could see Droll and Lock creeping into the top 15 or into the top 10, honestly. So that's it for all my honorable mentions. So now going into number 1, drum roll, it is going to be Nibiru, the Primal Being. I think a lot of people, you know, saw this coming. This was easily one of the most impactful cards in the entire year, and I think it's going to stay that way for a good while unless they come out with something even crazier. So Nibiru just being a complete blowout card, it's such an easy number 1 choice. You know, not a lot of decks can really play through Nibiru. There are a couple that they're starting to come out with, but honestly, majority of the decks, I would say about 95% of the decks get completely blown out by a Nibiru, and it's very tough for them to recover afterwards. So just that alone just warrants Nibiru being the number 1 slot. So I would 100,000% be side decking Nibiru if there was no way to main deck it. Alrighty guys, that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed this first list video. I hope that you enjoyed my brief little breakdown of the cards. Let me know in the comment section, you know, if there were any cards that I missed, because there might have been some that I missed. There were a lot of great cards in the year. There might be some that I missed. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what other list videos that you would like to see. I got a bunch more cooking up in the studio, but I always would love to hear more suggestions. All right, guys, with that being said, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Deuces.